Good morning, everyone. Brothers, sisters, psychonauts, and seekers of truth. It is Ananka, and welcome to my bazaar. Today, I have a 4 MMC, otherwise known as Mephedrone trip report for you. The title of this trip report is Looking Back, and was submitted to Irwid in 2010 by the user Doomnod. With all that being said, let our story begin. The following presents a retrospective of my first few trials with 4-methylmethcathinone, aka and henceforth called Mephedrone. Here is a brief summary of the effects that I experienced. Positive, elevated mood, mild euphoria, and pathogenic effects. Mild to moderate stimulation, increases in motivation, sociability, and mental clarity. No notable come down or hangover. Aphrodisiac after come down. Neutral effects were a slightly raised heart rate, pupil dilation, chattiness, and appetite suppression. And the negative effects were difficulty sleeping after primary effects had subsided. I received 10 grams from a reputable online chemical supplier. Since the deaths that occurred last year resulting from the mislabeling of a batch of bromo dragonfly as 2CB fly, I have been much more careful handling new chemical samples. A series of increasing low-dose trials can be a very effective approach to keeping oneself reasonably safe, as follows. I began by insufflating 1 milligram. The rationale being that even if the package were mislabeled, and the substance was actually one of the most active research chemicals such as bromo dragonfly or DOI, the result might be very uncomfortable, but wouldn't likely be life-threatening. No effects whatsoever were experienced at this dose. A second dose of 5 milligrams was insufflated 1/2 hour later. No effects were noted. 1 hour later, a third dose of 25 milligrams was insufflated in 2 equal parts, taken approximately 1/2 hour apart. 1 hour after the first 12.5 milligram line was taken, I felt an energetic lift. I was talkative and very clear-headed, with improved conversational ability. No significant physical effects were present. This experience gradually tailed off, with no ill come-down noted. At this point, since the substance was presenting itself exactly as expected, I felt confident that the package was accurately labeled and I could move on to a full dose. 1 week later, we were planning to attend a house party on the weekend and decided it might be a good venue for our first full trial. After reading various trip reports online and studying the various doses and responses, we decided we'd take multiple doses, up to a maximum total of 300 milligrams each. We prepared 2 100 milligram capsules and 2 50 milligram capsules for each of us, to be taken over the course of the evening. T plus 0, 9:50 p.m. We each took a 100 milligram capsule on the way to the party, and then an additional 50 milligram capsule 15 minutes later, just before entering the house. We thought this approach might smooth and slow the come-up, and reduce the chance of gastrointestinal upset or being caught up in a strong rush upon arrival. 20 minutes in. Despite not knowing anyone at the party, we settled in quickly and easily. We were both feeling first alerts, lightly stimulated, slightly euphoric, and sitting in the backyard around a small campfire, feeling very sociable. There wasn't any strong rush or queasiness that sometimes comes from the onset of MDMA, a much compared substance. 45 minutes in. I am feeling really good, and I think the substance is nearing the peak. The party is unfolding in a beautiful urban backyard, surrounded by lush gardens and trees decorated with white mini lights. Socializing is smooth and easy. I feel friendly, loving, and outgoing without feeling overstimulated. My partner is not feeling as much as I am at this point. An hour and 15 minutes. Yes, I feel great. I feel lucid, socially competent, and very at ease. My mind is nicely tweaked, but my body feels mostly normal. Heart rate is only slightly elevated. Body temperature feels more or less normal. The party is filling up, and very warm, considerate, outgoing people dominate the scene. 1.5 hours in. Hark! Is that the first hint of drop-off I feel? Yes. I think I have just crested the peak and begun the descent. Time to redose. I take another 100 milligrams, but I can't find my partner. I find her about 10 minutes later and give her her 100 milligrams. 15 minutes after that, we cross paths again, and she indicates she has yet to experience a very strong effect. So I suggest that she takes her remaining 50 milligrams, bringing her total to 300 milligrams. She agrees, and I decide to stick to 250. 1 hour and 50 minutes. At this point, my second dose hasn't taken hold yet, and I am feeling like I'm on my way down from the first dose. I feel less wonderful than I did, but still quite nice. We go inside the house to dance while the second phase takes hold. 2 hours. Dancing is fun and feels good, but I don't have a great deal of energy. So after a song or two, we go back outside to the patio. My second dose is clearly coming up, and my partner is finally feeling this substance blossom into something quite noteworthy. After 3 hours, we're both feeling fantastic, very sociable, and agree this is one hell of a substance. It is not as physically prominent as, say, MDMA or methadone, but it provides a very wonderful mood lift. I feel completely in control, at ease and content. 3.5 hours in, I've reached the tail end of the second peak, and we decide that it's time to go home. Arriving home, we still feel quite stimulated, so we take 3 milliliters of GHB, a 0.25 milligram of Xanax, 25 milligrams diphenhydramine, and some vapor hits of weed, hoping to bring on sleep quickly. We sit around and talk about the evening for an hour or so, and finally crawl to bed. 5.5 hours in, 3:20 a.m. We are both incessantly tossing and turning. I realize this substance shares a quality with methadone, that being extreme horniness after come down. Not only am I still very stimulated despite the onslaught of sedatives, but my mind is filled with erotic fantasies that are making it impossible to sleep. My partner says her heart is still beating quite fast. Mine feels normal. She suggests that we have sex to alleviate my horniness, but I'm actually too exhausted at this point to accept the offer. We go back downstairs for another 2 milliliters of GHB each, and I have 50 milligrams of diphenhydramine as well. Shortly after, the sexual fantasies give way to dreamy visions, and I finally fall asleep, albeit pretty fitfully, and I feel pretty tired when we woke up the next day. Summary. What a great experience. I have to say, I am thoroughly excited about this compound, because it's been a while since something interesting has come on the market. If I were to paint Mephedrone with a broad brush, I'd say it sits somewhere between Ritalin and methadone. Or, if methadone could be considered MDMA light, then I might describe Mephedrone as methadone light. It's less empathogenic and physical than methadone, but it definitely had notable heart-opening qualities. I think it could be a light and effective medicine for use in relationship therapy, apparently with sex being a reasonable post-session prospect. Recreationally, As a gentle social elixir, it might just be about as good as it gets. I tend to get a bit too chatty on MDMA and methadone, and every once in a while I wake up after a party feeling like I was a bit too friendly and gushy. Ritalin can make me look and feel like a tweaker. Mephedrone allowed me a bit more restraint, and I like that. Most of all, I like the fact that there was virtually no crash. I felt crappy the next day, but it just felt like a lack of sleep. Regarding the substance duration, it was very short, and so I felt a bit of a roller coaster effect with the dosing strategy we used. Next time, I will probably take the same total amount, but in repeated smaller doses, to get a more consistent effect over time. A sort of extended release plan, if you will. Ask your doctor if Mephedrone ER is right for you. I think starting with 100 milligrams, then taking 50 milligram capsules every 45 minutes over 2.5 hours might work well. Or as an alternative, I'll dissolve 250 to 300 milligrams in a bottle of juice and sip on it over the course of an evening. Report update. Since writing this report, I tried this dosing method and it worked very, very well. My total dose of 250 milligrams was perfect for me. For my partner, 300 milligrams was perfect, despite being only 75 to 80% of my body weight. We both agreed we started a bit too late in the night, and would rather not still have been speeding at 2:30 a.m. There is no question. This substance left us with a great deal of residual stimulation. There's a lot of online discussion regarding addiction and habituation. This substance left me excited at the prospect of doing it again, but I am not one that falls prey to impulse so much. I can definitely see the habituation potential, but remember, folks, there are no bad drugs, only bad usage patterns. Used cautiously and sensibly, I think mephedrone is a very worthy substance. Notes on insufflation. I insufflated mephedrone a couple of times in 30 and 40 milligram doses and found it very effective. The only negative side effect was the burn, which was formidable. The duration didn't seem too greatly affected, although it was reduced somewhat. And given that the oral duration is already so short, I am not overly inclined to use this method, unless I only want a very small bump to get me moving at a party. Notes on smoking and vaporizing. I tried smoking and vaporizing mephedrone a couple of times in 20 milligram doses using a small glass bulb pipe and an indirect flame. First, I tried using a cannabis vaporizer, but the 500-degree maximum setting was insufficient to vaporize the material. I found the effects to be similar to insufflation. The first hit was very clean and nice tasting, almost nutty. But what worries me is that after it melted down and went golden, it became markedly more harsh, making me wonder if the heat converts it into something else. My throat felt slightly irritated for an hour or two afterward, as if I had gone jogging in cold weather. The next day, I coughed up small amounts of clear phlegm. Needless to say, I don't imagine I'll be doing that again. If I'm looking for rapid effects, it is far easier to insufflate it. Thanks for reading. I hope this provided a solid overview of one person's experiences anyway.